One question I frequently get asked is what are the common mistakes I need to avoid when storing food for emergencies? Now, despite the wealth of information available online, many preppers they still wonder if they're getting it right. In this video, I'm going to explain the 5 most common mistakes in food storage, explaining why each error matters and how to avoid it. Successful long-term food storage requires a well thought out system that considers the container, the environment, the rotation practices, and the type of food itself. Here are the 5 mistakes to avoid when creating an emergency food storage supply. Download the Start Preparing Survival Guide to help you prepare for any disaster. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/get started for a free guide to help you get started on your journey of preparedness. Eat your supplies. Some people forget that the food is set aside to be eaten and not entirely just for that post-disaster event. Why would you eat it in the bad times if you're not going to eat it in the good times? There are certain exceptions like the freeze-dried, Mylar-packed emergency pouches of food, but for the most part, you should be eating from your pantry and then restocking it. One of the most overlooked aspects of your emergency food supply is ensuring that what you store is for survival, sustenance, and comfort. And this involves considering variety, edibility, digestibility, and practicality. If your emergency food supply consists solely of beans, rice, and whatever else happens to be in your kitchen cupboard, you might struggle to survive after disaster. Let's be honest, if you're not accustomed to eating cups of beans for every meal, you're probably not going to digest them any better in an emergency situation. This is where variety plays a crucial role. A well-varied pantry means that you can create more diverse and palatable meals, making the stressful situation a bit more bearable. The more variety in your pantry, the more meals you can make out of it, and the better off you'll be after a disaster. Your emergency food supply should not just be a collection of long-term, freeze-dried, or emergency bucket foods. And while those have their place, your emergency stock should primarily consist of foods that you regularly eat. Don't just store food for the eventual disaster. Make it a part of your everyday meal planning. Treat your pantry as a bulk storage area that needs to be regularly stocked and refreshed. And by integrating these items into your daily meals, you can keep your stock fresh and become familiar with preparing these stored foods. Viewing your food reserve only as an emergency resource, it increases the risk of discovering forgotten, spoiled containers just when you need them the most. By routinely eating and replenishing your pantry, you ensure your emergency food supply is always fresh and familiar. This way, you're not going to be shocking your system with unfamiliar foods after disaster. Remember, eat what you store and store what you eat. FIFO, first in, first out. The second mistake a lot of preppers make is not being aware or practicing FIFO rotation and expiration management. That means first in, first out. Assuming that properly stored food is going to remain edible indefinitely, they neglect to implement a first in, first out system. And this can result in wasted food, nutritional loss, or even spoilage as items languish past their prime. Have you ever had to toss out food that you paid good money for because it had expired? Now, some foods naturally or with the help of freeze drying and packaging are created to outlive you. And I'm sure you've heard archaeologists sampling wine or honey that is hundreds or thousands of years old. Most food, though, has an expiration date. When you put it in your pantry, you need to ensure the older dates are in the front and the newer items are in the back. This way, you're constantly pulling the stuff that's most likely to go bad first. That being said, expiration dates are sometimes just best by dates, and the food remains good long after that date. Some foods, however, have that date on there for a good reason. Understand which foods can turn toxic if consumed after their expiration date and learn the signs that something may be wrong with them, such as a bulging package, off smells, discolorations, or molds. And when in doubt, throw it out. Also, take note, are you throwing out the same expired things repeatedly? If so, maybe it's time to replace that space in your pantry with food that you actually eat. Another benefit of practicing FIFO is maintaining a nutritional balance in your food supply. Nutrients, they can degrade over time, so consuming older items ensures you're getting the intended nutritional value from your food. This practice also helps you to become more aware of your consumption patterns and identify items that you may not need as much of, preventing overstocking and ensuring your pantry contains a balanced and varied selection. Now, proper management not only reduces waste, but it also helps you stay better prepared and more confident in your emergency food supply. You can master FIFO techniques with one easy step. When you put away your groceries, use a Sharpie and write the month and year that food will expire in big numbers on the front of the package. This will give you a quick visual cue of what should be for dinner every time you open the pantry. And after a disaster, you'll know what to grab. Or you can add the information into a spreadsheet documenting the expiration date in your spreadsheet so you can easily see when the food will expire and use it before it does. Proper storage. The third mistake some preppers make is not properly sealing the food they package and put away. Food purchased in bulk sometimes can't all be consumed within the expiration timeline. For example, freeze-dried or vacuum-sealed dry materials may have had the moisture and air removed during the packaging process, giving them an extraordinarily long expiration date. And once opened, though, that date no longer applies. Exposure to oxygen and air will begin to affect the product. It will still keep for a long time because the moisture has been removed, but the air will slowly rehydrate the food, making it susceptible to spoilage. Foods crunchy from the package will absorb moisture and become more chewy as they take moisture in from the air. They're probably still safe to consume, but this should be a sign to prepare and eat this food first. Now, if you store large quantities of food in big airtight containers, consider repackaging the food into smaller portions. Instead of a container with 20 pounds of beans, you would be better served to seal 21-pound bags of beans in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and then pack those 20 bags in a container with oxygen absorbers. This is going to give you a double layer of protection from air, moisture, and pests for storage purposes. And when you crack the seal of the large container, you still will have individual bags portioned out that will allow you to use all the food and not expose it all to the harmful elements that would seek to spoil it. Some manufacturer packaging is designed to keep light, air, and moisture out while locking in the flavors and nutrients. If it doesn't have this type of packaging, it will have a shorter expiration date. You should have a mix of foods you have preserved and packaged and food that comes preserved and packaged for you. If you repackage foods, always use airtight, food-grade containers. Non-food grade containers can lead to harmful chemicals leaching into the food, while containers with inadequate seals allow moisture, oxygen, and pests to compromise the food's integrity. Location. The fourth mistake is where you actually store your food. Now, unfortunately, most modern kitchens aren't designed with very large pantry spaces, and if you live in an apartment, you might not even have a pantry, just a few cabinets. This ends up leading some people to repurpose space in their garage for their emergency supplies. And though many garages are not environmentally controlled, they can get hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and humid during the rainy season. These unstable temperatures and humidity variations are not suitable for food storage, even when that food is properly sealed. Ideally, you want a cool, dark, and dry location for your food storage. Basements, they can be good options, but only if adequately sealed and moisture controlled. Look for areas in your home with stable temperature and less prone to pests, like interior closets or dedicated storage rooms. Consider putting your packaged foods in larger sealable bins or buckets to protect them from environmental fluctuations and make them portable in a bug-out situation. You might want to also consider having food in 2 dry locations in your home. Emergency supplies like 72-hour kits might be stored separately from your pantry foods. This will give you food redundancy and ensure that you have food should one location be compromised. It will also provide you with a grab-and-go supply should you have to abandon your home and bug out. Additionally, limit food that you leave in the trunk of your car or your everyday carry bags to food that you would eat on a regular basis, as these will be likely exposed to higher temperatures on a regular basis, and you're going to want to consume them more frequently. Preparing food. One of the critical mistakes preppers often make is failing to account for water required to prepare, cook, or even eat their stored foods. Many emergency foods, such as dehydrated or freeze-dried meals, they require substantial water for rehydration and cooking. You can often eat them without rehydration, but the consumed will pull water from your digestive system to hydrate and digest the food. It's essential to calculate your water needs based on the types of food that you store and ensure that you have sufficient water for drinking and food preparation. Don't rely upon the municipal water system, which can quickly become tainted after a disaster or stop functioning altogether. Additionally, exploring alternative cooking methods that minimize water usage, such as pressure cookers or solar ovens, they can be beneficial. You can also choose foods that require minimal or no water preparation, making them more practical in water-scarce situations. And don't throw out the water or syrup in the can of vegetables or fruit. It can also be consumed as is or used in other cooking. Also, don't forget to include water purification methods in your prepping plans to ensure access to safe water from questionable post-disaster sources. Equally important is the ability to efficiently prepare and cook your stored foods. Stockpiling unfamiliar foods without the knowledge or skills to prepare them can lead to wasted resources and decreased morale during a crisis. I would encourage you to take the time to experiment with your stored foods, developing recipes and cooking techniques that work for you and your family. Use alternative fuel sources such as camp stoves, solar ovens, or even open fires to ensure that you're well prepared to cook without conventional appliances. Learning basic food preservation techniques like canning or drying, it can also be valuable, allowing you to extend the shelf life of fresh produce and other perishable items. Developing food ration and resource management skills is also crucial for long-term sustainability. You also should create a recipe book for stored food items, detailing how to prepare and cook them efficiently. You want to also consider laminating recipes or placing them in Ziploc baggies and storing them with your food. This can be a handy reference during an emergency and ensure that you make the most of your food supply. Practicing these skills ahead of time, they're going to help you stay prepared, confident, and resourceful in face of any disaster, making your emergency food supply genuinely effective and sustainable. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to post those below. Now, I'd like you to check out these two videos here on the side of the screen. The Ultimate Pantry Stockpile Checklist and 12 Ways to Safely Cook After Disaster. These videos will help you round out your understanding of food resources during and after a disaster. I'll also link to them below. As always, stay safe out there.